This is Inside the Commission, a Gambling Commission podcast. Welcome to Inside the Commission, a podcast all about gambling in Great Britain. Here we'll cover all the latest topics and trends from across the gambling sector and discuss the big issues that matter to you. From consumer queries to industry insights, we'll bring you the facts from the front line of regulation and share the stats and stories from those in the know. For all the latest discussions and updates, you can subscribe to our Gambling Commission YouTube channel, or you can find us on your preferred platform, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Hello and welcome to Inside the Commission, a Gambling Commission podcast. In this short series, we'll be exploring the Commission's advisory groups and how they work and contribute to the expertise, the insight and the challenge that helps inform the work of the regulator. Today, we're focusing on the Industry Forum, a group made up of representatives from across Great Britain's gambling sector, providing insight on industry perspectives, what the Commission's plans are, and the wider environment which operators work in. Today, we're joined by the Forum's Interim Chair, Kirsty Caldwell, along with the Commission's Head of Secretariat, Andrew Jackson, to talk about how the Forum works, the role it plays in bringing that industry insight into our regulatory conversations, and also how it sits alongside the other groups that we've got, the Digital Advisory Panel and the Lived Experience Advisory Panel. So let's get started. Let's start with some introductions. Andrew, do you want to introduce yourself and then we'll go to Kirsty?
Sure. So I'm Andrew. I'm the Commission's Head of Secretariat. So my remit covers the advisory groups, as you've outlined, and also supporting the Commission's board.
And in terms of your general sort of day-to-day, what does that sort of involve then? What are you sort of having to tackle, especially around the expert groups?
It's a varied role, so no 2 days are the same. So we have to work with colleagues across the Commission to generate work for the advisory groups. And that could be working with finance, policy, strategy, ops, anything really.
Okay, cool. And Kirsty, interim chair, you've been appointed that for a short while now, so pretty big responsibility. Could you introduce yourself to our listeners? Let us know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Kirsty. I run a compliance consultancy business called BetSmart Consulting. We've been going about 6 years. A couple of years ago now, I was appointed as a member of the Industry Forum group. And then, as you say, got kind of promoted, I guess you'd call it promoted, to the position of interim chair in January. Exciting times, and a lot's been going on since that appointment was made.
Yeah, and since you joined the Industry Forum, what has your experience been like and how have you found it, and is it what you expected it to be?
That's a really good question. I don't know how I expected it to be, really, and I think that probably everybody within the group would say that. Maybe there was an element of that for you guys at the Commission as well.
Definitely.
It's, quite unprecedented. Commission has never really worked with industry in this way before. I guess one of the things that I was surprised about was the diversity of the group that the Commission put together in terms of the members. So I kind of thought it would be full of compliance people, and that isn't the case at all. There's kind of 2 or 3 of us who are mainly focused on compliance in our businesses, but we have different people from different parts of the sector doing completely different roles. So that's great because we get some really different perspectives that we wouldn't get if everybody was, from the same background.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andrew, from your point of view, obviously you've been, leading on the Industry Forum from the beginning, really. How has it been for you? What's been the sort of like the challenges or the wins as well in terms of the Industry Forum for you?
That's a broad question. So challenges, I suppose I would say that when we have a job of coordination, so I see it as quite a practical role in bringing the work to the forum to help other colleagues. So that's the ultimate benefit that we're going for, is to enhance that work.
A sounding board, isn't it?
Exactly. So what you're dealing with potentially is we have to be across almost all of a lot of the Commission's work, which we're not that close to. but we have to have a good understanding of it to get it in front of the forum in the right way. So you're probably dealing with colleagues that aren't used to dealing with industry and aren't used to sitting in front of people from operators and presenting their work. So we have to work with them to overcome some of that. Other colleagues are much more comfortable with it, which is fine. But that's been a bit of a challenge. But no, it's been really good. I think there's been a lot of constructive dialogue. And
the groups are very different, aren't they? So the industry forum has a very different view perspective to the lived experience, to the digital advisory. So you've got to sort of, you've got to make sure that the colleagues within the GC know that they're getting almost a different level of insight, a different perspective coming from each of these groups.
Yeah, we do. It's our job to bring the right people together. And you mentioned Lived Experience Advisory Panel. They're a really well-established group. The Commission's had for several years now. It's got a really good profile in the Commission. They're across a lot of our work. Digital Advisory Panel's a bit more specialised, as you'd probably expect. So data, digital, which is massive for the Commission, but they're right across that. An Industry Forum is a bit more of the new group, really. So it's been running for the 2 years that I've been in this role. And I think we've got it embedded in the Commission now. I think the work that they're doing at the moment shows that it's fully embedded in the Commission.
Start with yourself, Kirsty. Do you want to sort of share how you think the forum, the mechanics of the forum, how it works, and sort of how it links into the Commission and how it provides that sort of intelligence that comes back into for us to sort of have those regulatory conversations?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we meet probably about every other month. Initially, we were just going to have remote meetings, but we decided really early on that we thought face-to-face was better where we could do. So we come up to the Commission's offices when we can, and we all sit in a room for kind of 3-4 hours. Up to this point, kind of the Commission has very much driven the agenda, and that's been based on, which colleagues have needed that sounding board at that particular point. I think, moving forward, we want to try and get that process to be a little bit more collaborative. So there's, it's very fast-paced regulatory environment, and I think there's often things that operators want to talk about, like kind of hot topics and things like that. So we're trying to look at ways to kind of work more collaboratively and maybe start to bring some of those operator-brought agenda items into the meetings as well. But aside from the meetings, we've been engaging more recently with kind of projects which take place outside of those. So it may be that a Commission colleague comes to the meeting and they will, there will be an action for them to work directly with 2 or 3 of the members of the forum who are best placed to help them. Be that providing data or reviewing documents or wherever else it might be. And I think another really key one is reviewing things that the Commission are going to publish before it goes out. So a good example of that will be the AML risk assessment, which is due to go out, I think, in April, John said. There's lots of different ways that we kind of get involved, and that's evolving and developing all the time, which I think is really good and shows that, we're moving forwards.
And yourself, Andrew, in terms of the general forum, how it functions?
Yeah, so Kirsty's right in terms of how we meet. I guess the one point I'd make is when I took this role, there was a lot of formality around the groups and how they met, which works some of the time, but I wanted to move away from that at other times and make it a bit more agile. So, sometimes the format of 3-hour meetings is fine when that's needed, but it's not always needed. So when we've got really specific pieces of work that need the insight from any of our groups, I want to make sure that the groups are running an agile way to meet quickly, and maybe not all of the group, maybe just some select individuals that are best suited to work on it, and that's worked really well.
Yeah, in terms of the Commission does a lot of engagement outside the industry forum with the industry. We go out to a lot of meetings, engagement events. We have that sort of one-to-one time with operators. How does the forum and that sort of engagement work together? Are they sort of two separate tracks, or is there quite a bit of linkage in what we get from or what we hear from outside of the forum in terms of our engagement with industry?
I'll answer that first, yeah.
Go on.
So I think that's a really good question, Haroon, as well. I think one point that I want to make clear, and I think potentially there's some confusion about this point within the wider industry, is that, we're not a trade body. We're not competing with the trade bodies. We're not trying to be a trade body. Our job is not to lobby the Commission and try to drive policy direction. It is to support the Commission in undertaking policy change, trying to make that as smooth and effective and kind of sensible for the industry as possible. And I think, there's obviously lots of different ways that the Commission work with the industry and gather information. I think one thing about the forum is that we're independent, so we are representing ourselves as individuals. Yes, we work within the industry, but we're not representing our licensed businesses when we're dealing with Commission staff. And I think that changes the dynamic a little bit than if you were, here to present on behalf of your company.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that's really helpful. So I just wanted to touch on sort of when people get involved in the industry forum, what sort of things are they involved in? And I know the next sort of 12 months you've already spoken about, there's a lot of stuff that the industry is going to be going through with changes around taxation and, illegal gambling is a big topic, and these sorts of things are obviously out there. What sort of things how do you sort of look ahead and go, right, where do we need to be focusing our efforts?
That's so although I sort of, I guess, head up the advisory groups, I don't do everything. So I've got Kelly King, who's our dedicated resource for the Lived Experience Advisory Panel, and I've got Tess Sorrell, who's the Governance Stakeholder Manager. So we work together to be across the Commission, looking at the work plan and deliverables and what's coming down the track, and then speaking with the relevant colleagues and who are leading on that work to look at how we can help progress and develop that work and enhance it via our groups. So we develop a work plan as much as we can, a sort of a forward look. We're constantly working in that way, and we bring the chairs of each group in to help develop that plan as well, and bring them into early conversations with relevant work stream leads or members of the executive team.
And I think, just to add to that, I think there's quite a few kind of big ongoing projects that we've dipped in and out of since we started, really. We've done a lot of work with John Pearce in the AML space. I mentioned the AML risk assessment, but before that, kind of the BGC AML code, he kind of used us as a sounding board to discuss that. I think another one, which was a really interesting one, which I think is ongoing, is around trying to reduce the regulatory burden. I can't remember the chap who came to talk.
Richard Hollis.
Been
a couple of times now, hasn't he?
Yeah, he was. I mean, that was really interesting, because from that and from discussions with people who work at operators, we kind of unearthed several processes whereby operators are communicating with the Commission and maybe sending data or doing something in a certain way that it's not really even being used, or it's not it's not an optimal way to be doing that for either side. And so just being able to have those conversations, like, you can sometimes put in some really quick fixes and changes, which actually makes life easier for everybody, which I think it's really cool when we stumble across one of those.
I think that's a really good point, and that's kind of why we have these groups as standing groups, to have that consistent and continual dialogue. An example that stood out for me was in the very first industry forum. The very first agenda item was on our consultation process, and it basically, you have a position where people at the Commission try and do really good work, They think about it really deeply, they work really hard on it and try and do well, but they can't think of everything. And in that first ever agenda item, we got the perspective around smaller operators completing our consultations, and we heard things that we just wouldn't have thought of. So straight away we were like, well, we can fix that, or we can do that, and that will fix it. So it was the very first agenda item made me think this is going to work. So this is why we have these groups, and that was just for a relatively small project. So we have that obviously right the way through our work up to the bigger projects.
Yeah. And how do you sort of determine then what gets put in front of the forum? Do you sort of, depending on what comes through the system, or do you try and focus on certain areas that you think you can make the best amount of value you can add to it?
So that's again comes back to me and my team, and one of the things we did, I think it was last year, we just analysed all of the Commission's business plan, just went through it and went through every piece of work that the Commission's doing, and spoke with every work stream lead, and looked at ways where it looked at the work that they were doing and the insight that they might, talked about the insight that they might need and the perspectives they might need to help with that work.
Join us for part 2 of this episode, where we'll hear more from Kirsty and Andrew about the Industry Forum. This is Inside the Commission, a Gambling Commission podcast. To stay up to date with the latest content, you can subscribe to our Gambling Commission YouTube channel, or you can find us on your preferred platform, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks for listening.